Hi, guys. Welcome to the third episode of the Burg Bros podcast. My name is Thomas Hughes, and I am joined by Kahlil McCullough and a new guest that we have for today, Evan Hughes. How you doing, Evan?
I'm great. It's great to be with you guys. Happy summer. It's a great time of the year. Coming live to you from Christiansburg and Blacksburg, where the students are gone, the Chipotle lines are smaller, there's no cookout line, and campus is like there's nobody there. So, anyways, it's a weird time of the year for sure, but it's great to be with you guys. Love the both of you, and I love that you guys are both doing a podcast.
Gotta say, I love Cookout. Love Cookout. Probably one of my top three places to go. That's like near or near slash off campus, but Cookout is a great place. Let me just put that out of the
Agreed.
way. All right, so the first thing that we have on docket today is a way too early look at all the VT sports. So first, we're going to start with women's basketball because Evan does the radio announcements for them. So Evan, just generally, like when you get the sense of like what this team is capable of going into next year, like what would you expect from them going into the 25-26 season?
And I expect a team that really wants to build off of such a great year one under Coach Duffy, right? So much uncertainty with a new coaching staff coming in and a somewhat new roster, in that you've got new players and new roles. And for this team to win 19 games, to be the first team left out of the NCAA tournament, obviously disappointment to not make the tournament, but to be there, to have some marquee ACC wins in year number one, like that Louisville game, like that win at number 13 Georgia Tech, to be able to build off that with a core that returns. Yes, you lose some starters, Matilda Eck, Rose Shaw, Lonnie White, but you keep that core together of the Carly Wenzels of the world and Karis Baker, and you've got Samaya Suffren coming off injury. Mackenzie Nelson finished the season so strong. A pair of talented freshmen last year in Layla Wells and Kale Peterson that took some real strides their second year. You combine that with what they did in the transfer portal. I think a really good freshman class coming in. I think this is going to be a really fun team that can build off of the steps they took in year one. I thought Coach did an amazing job in her first year, a great staff, and there's a lot to build off of going into year two of the Megan Duffy era.
Who would you say would be like the breakout, the possible candidate for a breakout campaign this coming season?
You know, I think that's an interesting question, because I think if there's one thing we learned about Tech women's basketball last year, there's not one or two stars that are going to take 20, 25 shots a game. It's balanced scoring across the board. So, you had Carly Wenzel and Karis Baker near the top last year, but, those two, I don't have the numbers in front of me. I think probably averaged about 12 or 13 points per game in ACC play. So I think those two are candidates, though, that can take another step from a scoring perspective. I think we saw that especially with Karis Baker in the month of February. And then I even think from other aspects of the game, like Karis Baker last year transitioned from being a wing player as a freshman to playing more in the low post. And I think her rebounding can continue to grow. So I think those two, even though they were two of your top scorers last year, they can break out even more. And then I look at like someone in Mackie Nelson that just got better and better as the year went along. Can she add more to her scoring? Because she does such a great job from a facilitation standpoint, from taking charges to doing all the little things. So those are just all the returners. And then you look at, bringing in Kyla Freelon and Melanie Daly, Sophie Swanson, some experienced player at the power forward level from a transfer perspective. I mean, to me, I think this is going to be a deeper team this year. And I think you're going to continue to see more, to back what I was saying earlier, more balanced across the board with this team.
Just going off of your point about talking about Karis Baker and Carly Wenzel, looking at Wenzel's stats on ESPN, she actually took 12.1 field goal attempts per game. And then on Baker's end, it was slightly less, 9.5. But that's just taking the entire season at a whole and not just the conference games. One thing to note, Karis Baker shot 41.8% from 3-point land last year. Do you think that there's a possibility for an even further jump or no?
Well, I tell you what, if you're shooting over 40% in the ACC from distance, it's hard to do that and to get back to that. And someone who actually consistently did that across her 2 years was Matilda Eck, right around that number, at least for her career and then in the ACC. But yeah, I mean, to me, we knew Karis her freshman year when she was in a role. She was a role player off the bench with that Kit Lee and Amore led team that won an ACC regular season title. We knew that she could shoot it. Last year, she showed the ability to be a complete player. So, yes, I mean, listen, the first time I ever saw Karis play was in Greece in the summer of 2023 when Tech women's basketball went overseas. And right away, you just knew, I mean, she has a gift. I mean, she can really shoot it. So, yes, I think that she can get back to that number. I think that that makes her such a difficult player to defend is that she's going to play that four position, but she can step out and shoot. She can make the defense. You're going to have to go out and guard her and stretch the floor a little bit. I tell you what, you think about the combination, though. I mean, Wenzel shoots it well from distance. So does Baker. And then I tell you, someone that Tech added this year is Sophie Swanson from Purdue. 2 years ago, as a freshman, she led the Big Ten in the nation with 4.8 3-pointers per 40 minutes. So she can
Wow.
really shoot it. So I think you're going to see this year, this Tech team, they might not be as big. To me, Freelon is going to be someone who you could pair down low. The Texas Tech transfer in Freelon with Baker. Then you've got two freshmen in Anaya Trent and Amani Jenkins, both at 6'3". So you might not have as much size, but that allows you to get out and transition to run and to stretch the floor and shoot the three balls. So I think that could continue to be a trend for this team moving forward.
Just generally, how do you think that they handled the size issue? It sort of seemed to be an issue last year to where, you didn't really have too much depth at being able to play like a tall five. Do you think that they dealt with that or not really?
I think they did. Listen, there's a lot of different ways you can win a basketball game, and I think one of the strengths of this team is being able to get out in transition to push the tempo. And you look at the history of basketball over the last 10 years or so. I mean, look at Golden State right back in 2016. I mean, that was positionless basketball where you had Draymond Green playing the five. We really hadn't seen that all that much. Now, again, Freelon is 6'1", but is a physical player. Baker's 6'1", 6'2". And then, we'll see with the freshman at 6'3" and Trent and Jenkins. I mean, take Cale Peterson, for example. I think Cale did a really nice job at playing a stretch four, stretch five last year. She's only listed at 6'1", but she plays taller than that. So I
Right.
think they went out to the portal and recruited to the strength of this team. And while they are going to have to rebound collectively, and they might not be leading the league in rebounding, that creates opportunity where you might be a little bit of a smaller quote unquote team. That doesn't mean you're not a physical team. And that might mean you're giving up maybe a little bit of rebounding edge to be better in transition and to hurt teams from that regard. So
Right.
to me, I think it just kind of built off of the foundation of this past year. They went out and found players that fit their system, and I think you're going to be able to see more of that this year of being able to push the tempo, be quick in transition, try and catch teams off guard. But there's no doubt that Coach Duffy talks a lot about that team rebounding. They push that. That is a focal point for every game, and that's going to continue this year.
At least for me, it feels like a key point that you see a lot brought up under this team, both from last year and this year, seems to be versatility. Talking about the height, you don't have like a super tall player, but that actually, I think, in your opinion, ends up being a good thing. To me, it just seems like it may be an issue at some point down the road, but it at this point, I think it also has the possibility to be a strength, if that makes sense. It
Nope. I
just
mean, listen,
it's a big risk, big reward type move, I think.
but I thought there were some games where they held their own with the rebounding last year. There were games like the Texas Tech game and the WBIT. Teams are really physical. But again, you've also got a lot of younger players coming back. Again, Karis Baker had to learn the post position last year. She's got a full off season of doing that. To me, Kyla Freelon, again, ironically, where did she come from? Texas Tech. Who did Tech lose to in the WBIT at Castle Coliseum? Texas Tech, right? So Freelon at 6'1", 7 points, 6 rebounds against Virginia Tech. I think the way I look at it with this Tech team, there might not be someone who averages 8 or 9 rebounds per game, but like look at Carly Wenzel. I think she averaged around 4 rebounds per game. That's your point guard. Mackenzie Nelson got in their rebound. If you can get different contributions spread it out from a rebounding perspective, that's big. The other thing too, you think about last year, there wasn't as much depth. So if someone got in foul trouble, you had to go smaller. I'm looking at the front court now of Freelon, Baker, Peterson, Trent, Jenkins. You've got some different lineup combinations, and that's what I'm always curious to see. What do those lineup combinations look like? And if you've got Baker and Peterson, known commodities, Freelon, and then if Trent and Jenkins can give you solid minutes as a freshman, there's five post players that can really come in and give you minutes. When really last year it was Mishaw, Baker, Peterson, and then maybe a little bit of Ramiah White here and there. So I do think the depth is there this year more so with the front court.
Right. And you've also got time in terms of how like this core has time to develop because who are the seniors? I think it's just Kyla Freelon whose eligibility runs out the season alongside Melody Daly. I think those two, that's it in terms of eligibility running out. So this team has time for both this year and next year with this core.
Absolutely. And I think that's something that Coach Duffy really likes is that, again, as they get ready, ironically, as we record on this Sunday, they're getting ready to get everyone back together here this week. So, again, you think about where this team was last year, just about every player was in a different role than they had been in previous years of their college career. Now, Carly Wenzel, a full year of being an ACC starting point guard. Karis Baker, a full year of being an ACC starting forward. Mackenzie Nelson was coming off a red shirt last year, right? She's got another year under her belt. Even so again, even though their roles will change and they'll get back, they have that experience. And so I tell you one name too. I'm really excited to get to see another year of. This team, I think, at times last year really missed the explosiveness that Samaya Suffren plays with at a guard position. The way she could get downhill, that she could defend guards on the perimeter. And I think that's another name that might get forgotten about a little bit. A healthy Samaya Suffren is going to pay dividends for this team. Don't know what that starting five looks like, but whether she's in a starting role or coming off the bench, that's the word I use. She is explosive. Good luck trying to defend her. And so, again, that's just another added element of depth that this team is going to have. A healthy Samaya Suffren. You look at games like that Stanford game that Tech lost in the fourth quarter of last year, that Boston College game that went to overtime. Like, there were games where you missed that skill set that Samaya Suffren played with. Now you get her back.
Right. I think I described it in I wrote an article for the Hokies loss against I think they were ranked number 12 at the time, UNC, back in February. And part of it came down to, Virginia Tech just missed a few shots that, North Carolina made. And it just seems like suffering coming back, you get the extra depth. I think that the shooting is going to be what's going to see the biggest upgrade come this fall. Just for you generally, like where do you feel like this team's ceiling is going to be this coming season?
I think it's a good question. To me, I think there's no doubt this team wants to get to the NCAA tournament, and they want to continue to build off of the great recent history of this Virginia Tech women's basketball program, right? I think that's something Coach Duffy did such a great job of coming in with a team that was fresh off an ACC regular season title, 2 years removed from the Final Four, keeping that momentum going from a fan support standpoint, from a recruiting standpoint. I mean, this class of Trent Jenkins and then Kate Sears, who I felt like had a triple double every time I found out what she was doing in her senior year of high school last year. I mean, it's a really good recruiting class that could really help pave the way for the future of this program. So to me, this team they want to be playing postseason basketball. They want to be back in the NCAA tournament, and they want to be contending near the top of the ACC. And to me, this is one of the most wide open years that the ACC has had coming up. I mean, just about every top team has lost significant pieces, whether that's Notre Dame at the top and, just about every player not named Hannah Hidalgo, I felt like transferred out. You've got North Carolina that loses Alyssa Usby. Louisville's had to reload a little bit. Duke, who's the defending tournament champions, lost Aluchi Okanawa, who is their most valuable player. North Carolina State loses Rivers and all of those Rivers and Isaiah James. So I'm really curious. I think the ACC is open, and I think Virginia Tech's got a lot of pieces back, and they can contend. And as you know, if you're in that top four, top five of the ACC, that means you're a top 20 team in the country. And I think Tech's got the ability to do that this year.
Right. Well, moving on to baseball, another sport that you've covered. Just generally, where do you see the pitching staff at in terms of this moment of time? We're out a very long way from the season, but just giving like a bird's eye view of where we're at, like right after the 2025 season came
Yeah,
to
we're
an
a
end.
couple weeks removed. We're recording on June 15th. So the answer is it is still very much up in the air. And one of the big reasons why is because, as we record this podcast, still waiting on the pitching coach hire. And obviously that is going to have a very big say in what the staff looks like. Obviously this year to me, in my 4 years of covering this program, but I've really seen Tech baseball since 2018, injuries, injuries, and more injuries, right? You think about this year from Stig, Clement, Eisenrich was hurt at times this year. From like a
Swift,
pitching, Swift dealt with injuries. I mean, you could go on and on to Andrew Sentlinger, one of your top left-handed relievers, injured. And then you look at a position player standpoint. Cook was slow coming into the year. Grady got hurt at one point this year. Michelle, obviously. And then in the outfield, Pittman was hurt. Trayson Hughes was your opening day leadoff guy, a transfer from Ole Miss, one of the top players on the team. He only played 13 games. So I bring all that up to say, from a pitching perspective, right now you've got Stig in the portal. Marciano goes to Auburn, but Brett Renfro, he's back. A guy who's been your Friday guy the last 2 years. You've got Madden Clement's a guy that there's a lot of high hopes on, and he had a really promising freshman season, and so you get him back. Then you never know. I mean, I don't know a ton about the recruiting class from a pitching perspective, but you go back to 2022, nobody knew who. Well, people knew the Hackenberg name. Nobody knew that Drew Hackenberg was going to be the ACC ERA leader as a freshman. So you've got him, and you had Hackenberg, you had Griffin Green. So who knows what freshman? You got Eisenrich back, who really made some strides this year. So I think the pitching, I'm excited. Because you've got a lot of guys back, but obviously that's all dependent right now on what everything looks like and rolls. That's all dependent on the pitching coach, and that's really the first domino to fall.
gotcha. Well, on the day that we're recording this, 4 days ago, Tech baseball also landed a commit from St. Joseph's infield in terms of Owen Petrich. Just generally, where do you feel they would fit in terms of the lineup?
Yeah, so I mean, obviously losing Michelle, I mean, I'm curious to see, um, you know, you got Hudson Luderman coming back, right? He's a middle infielder. If he's playing third, then could he be playing first base? The St. Joe's train. I hope I'm saying so, Owen Petrick or Petrick, but he could slot in there at first base. Then you got some draft eligible guys. Is Jared Davis back? Is Clay Grady back? Even behind the plate, Henry Cook, David McCann, draft eligible guys. So that's going to be interesting to me. I mean, again, to me, first base makes sense. I thought Hudson Luderman, even though his numbers kind of slipped towards the end, I mean, that guy's a ball player. He's going to be a really
Agreed.
good player. So, you could put him at third. He also showed the ability to play second base. I think the fact that Petrick can play multiple spots in the infield makes him super versatile. But I mean, a guy, by the way, in Petrick, 121 RBI in 2 years at St. Joe, started his career as Delaware. I mean, a guy who could just flat out hit. And Tech's had some success bringing in some guys from the A10 over the years. Eddie Micheletti a couple of years back at George Washington, one of the more recent guys. You go back to 22, a grad transfer in um, Eddie Micheletti at second base was really good. So Tech's done a really good job bringing in mid-major players and then them having some success at the end of the year or end of their careers. So we'll see. Again, I don't think they're done yet. Obviously, the College World Series is still going on, so that roster is really going to take shape here over the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, Petrick has a lot of power too. 26 homers over those 2 years with St. Joe's.
Yeah,
Uh,
no, absolutely.
Ethan Gibson is another option I think to consider in terms of
Absolutely.
using him in the infield. In my prediction, because I wrote a story on Petrick's commitment to joining Tech, I predicted that Petrick was going to start at first base. Then you have Gibson at second and Luderman at third. Now, obviously, that's fluid, and you end up with more stuff later on. But just generally, do you feel like that's about how it would go, or would you tweak it at all?
John, I'm sorry, you're saying the infield?
Yes.
Yeah, so I mean, the cool thing about Ethan Gibson, I'm glad you bring him up. I mean, that guy has played first, second, short, and third in his career. I mean, he can play anywhere. So I think this is all dependent on the draft, right? I mean, you've got some draft eligible guys. So again, Clay Grady, Jared Davis, your middle infield, are they both back? I like, obviously. I mean, Clay Grady has been a consistent everyday guy defensively for 3 years. I think he would be the first time he'd love for his offense to have been a little bit better this year, but a guy who hit around 260 his first 2 years. I mean, he's a capable offensive guy. Jared Davis showed some some real great flashes this year. And then you've got, Petrick. Then you've got some freshmen coming in too. So, that's the fun part for Coach Chef and Coach Elvin is that they've got some real pieces to figure out who works where. Obviously, the fall is going to have a big say too, and all that shakes out. And then the other thing is this: like, if there's one thing I learned this year, it's just you can never predict injuries, and you never know what Again, nobody could predict that Garrett Michelle was going to get hurt this year. No one was predicting that. Everything that happened, played out the way that it from an outfield perspective. I mean, even look at that. Sam Tackett ended up playing a lot of first base this
Right.
year. Tech had 5 different first basemen this year at times. David Lewis, Trayson Hughes, Garrett Michelle. I think Ethan Gibson played a little bit at first at one point in the
I think
year.
Luderman might have as well.
Luderman and then French. So you just never know. As we sit here in June, you can project all you want, but you never know how it's going to shake out.
I mean, just generally, how do you think, going off of that, how do you think that things stand in the outfield as well? Like,
Well, I tell you, you get Trayson Hughes back. I mean, Hughes to me has superstar written all over him. And that's just a name that Tech fans really didn't get to know much of this year because he was battling injury, 13 games. So you lose guys like Tackett, Pittman, and Watson, right? That's a lot of offense right there. However, you bring a guy like Hughes back who could be I think he might be the most talented center fielder that John Sheff has had in his time here at Virginia Tech. And then you look at, Nick Locurdo is back. He got some run. How about Micah Jordan hitting his first career home run in the ACC tournament? There's excitement about him. So I think that, you'll have options. It's hard to tell right now, weeks after the year. And then again, you just never know from a transfer perspective. Does Tech go out and try and get a corner outfielder? That would be something to keep an eye on as well.
well, thank you so much for coming on, Evan. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks to you, Thomas. Thanks to Kahlil. And you guys have a great rest of your show. And I hope that I get a chance to come back on with you guys. Have me on anytime. I'd love to come back.
No
Awesome.
problem.
Thanks,
Thank
man.
you, Evan.
Yeah.
Dropping
Have a
by.
great rest of your show, guys.
All right, well, we're back and we are now going to talk about men's basketball. And we have a second guest alongside us for the third episode. It is the new editor-in-chief for 3304 Sports, Tucker Terry. Hey, Tucker, how you doing?
Very well. Appreciate you guys having me on and looking forward to talking some basketball.
Well, just generally, how do you feel that the men's basketball team evolved from last year to this year, like the progression points?
I really like the direction that Mike Young has taken this team in, and he really pinpointed what are the 4 guys that really will take this team to the next level after what was a year of a lot of struggle, but we saw some younger players kind of develop as the year went on. And that was Ben Hammond, that was Toby Lawal, Tyler Johnson, and Jaden Shute. Those are the only 4 players that he essentially invited back. Everybody else left and was replaced for more talent. And Virginia Tech, they've brought in this talent. And just looking at the transfers, you got Jalen Bedford. He is a UNLV junior. He averaged about 10 points a game, and he'll be in that backcourt with Ben Hammond, along with Isaiah Pasha from Delaware, who was actually their conference's rookie of the year. So those 3 in the backcourt create a much more dynamic unit than what we saw last year with just Hammond and Rexsteiner. And then what could really make the big difference, and we'll actually find out today, is
Avdalas.
Avdalas, who is Avdalas, the Greek star, who is potentially today is the last day that they have to go out of the draft. And he is
Yeah.
verbally committed, obviously, to Virginia Tech, and that would make all the difference because
For reference,
this
for
is
those watching, this is being recorded on June 15th. So keep that in mind
yeah.
for
Thanks for
what
noting
Tucker's
that.
saying. So that's just giving context. He has about 7 hours, I think, from when we're recording this, because this is at like 5 p.m. We're recording this before Tucker goes for dinner. So I just looking at Neoklis Avdalas, I think that he's like a very, very good player that could slot in at the 3 or the 4 very easily, frees up a lot of depth. I mean, A, it's obviously just another piece, but B, like what he can bring to the table. Apart from him, I like the fact this is something that like I've noticed, like just going around and like reading a bunch of pieces. Like it always seems like Mike Young, his like mentality, have at least like 2.5 point guards. You might have like that combo guard, but you want like two true point guards on the roster now. I think he's got that. I think he's got Hammond, he's got Bedford. Shoot can play the two. Shoot can play the three if you need him to. I think that the depth on this team is a lot better than last year. For you, where do you see this team ceiling wise?
It's hard to say right now because it kind of depends on obviously the decision that Avdalas makes today. I mean, regardless, this team is far better than what we saw last year. I think if Avdalas comes to Virginia Tech, the expectations are going to be high because he's one of the biggest recruits that they've gotten in quite a long time. So you're looking at least expectations wise in Blacksburg, potentially top five in the conference. If he doesn't come, you need to temper your expectations a little bit, but still, you brought back the big four from last year, brought in some depth from both around the country, and still you got Antonio Dorn, who another European guy. He was 22-year-old from Germany. He could play in college up until he's 26. So
Right.
kind of seeing the new landscape of college basketball there. And regardless, we're going to see more competitive basketball than what we saw last year, but Avdalas will really kind of hinder whether this team is elite or just solid.
Having Dorn at the five also opens up Tech to develop one of their incoming freshmen, Christian Gerdak, who's coming in. Him having time to be the backup five and have time to like learn from Dorn. Because Dorn has played in like Germany, he's played overseas. That opens up like a lot of preparation for the future and then also, contending now. Because Dorn is very solid, in my opinion.
No, he is, and anybody who's gotten that professional experience is going to have, I'd say, a kind of a head start in once they get to college. And this isn't something we've seen before, but now with NIL, you obviously you can legally get paid to play college sports. That's kind of an incentive of maybe I'm not NBA ready, but I can come to the States and still get paid to play basketball.
Right. And it's different from the past where, you'd see college players skip to go pro due to stuff like financial hardships and whatnot. Now it's a lot easier to make the decision of, hey, I'm going to stay in college because I can earn some cash and still be able to play at like a college that, I'm committed to either for the experience or to prepare myself to go pro.
Yeah, and kind of taking the role of the G League Ignite there, college basketball doing the same thing that the G League Ignite was doing a few years ago, which was kind of bridging the gap between NBA and college.
And that brings us to our next discussion, the NBA. So we're currently taping this. I believe it's the day after game 4 of the finals. It might be 2 days after.
I think
I'm,
2 days ago.
yeah, 2 days ago was game 4. Series is tied 2-2. Just have to say this. NBA finals have been amazing this year. Like in terms of like where you put this in like the pantheon of NBA finals of this, like, let's say this decade, it's gotta be like number 2 at minimum.
Who number one?
Well, like between 2014 and 2024, you can't beat 2016. You can't. It's like one of the top 5 finals of all time.
I mean, yeah.
Like game 7 might be the greatest game in NBA history.
It's the game
Well,
of our
this
generation.
being in 2025 though.
No, but like this is like from the past 10 years. Oh,
Oh,
oh my God,
yeah.
2025. Okay, well, we'll say 2015 to 2025, past 10 years. You got 2016, and then I think you got 2025. I guess for third place, you could probably put something like 2019 or 2020 in there. I
I
don't know.
put 2015 finals was up there, bro.
I could get behind that. I think that
2015 was, yeah.
all those kind of meshed together. 2021 was a good finals, but I just feel like part of that happened because of the injuries, which I don't think that that's necessarily a bad thing. But you get the luck of the draw. I think that the Bucks did get a slightly easier luck of the draw because a lot of the opponents that they played dealing with a lot of injuries. So deal with what you get. I think that the NBA Finals has been less exciting for in the past up until this year for 2 reasons. Number one, the NBA is not as good as promotions as it used to be a couple years ago. And number two, you don't have those like marquee stars that are like a step above. Like you don't have like that one guy who's like a step above everybody else. You don't have like a Jordan and you don't have a LeBron. Well, you still have LeBron, but he's not as good as he was like 10 years ago, and that's a fact. Wemby could be that one day, but for right now, you have the parity, which I think is really good for diehard basketball fans because you get to see so many teams that have a shot at winning the championship. But then for a casual, it's hard to get invested because you're like, oh, is this team even going to be that good next year compared to the rest of the league? I think that that's led to a somewhat dull product in terms of what fans are seeing. And then also, just this isn't mean to the Miami Heat, but also they made the finals twice. And I don't think that they were a team equipped to contend in the NBA finals. What do you think, Kahlil?
Well, to your point, I think that that's very true. Number one. Number two, they've been a part of, I was just looking at this earlier, the top 10 of the fewest watched NBA finals. The bubble, which they played the Lakers, was the lowest viewed finals in NBA history at 6.2 million.
It's
And
bad.
the one a couple years ago was in the top 10 against Denver. But I think it was just a lack of competition. Like, I think whoever they went up against, whether it was Denver or the Lakers, they knew that the Heat were the far like least better team of the two teams playing.
Right.
And I think that to your point about the stars, I think it's a struggle right now. Like we're still transitioning from the LeBron, Steph, KD era of basketball, James,
Right.
all those guys. And we're trying to find consistency of who that next dynasty will be. I think the last 3 or 4 years, there have been, or no, the last seven finals, there have been a new NBA champion in
We
that.
haven't had a repeat champion since we haven't
2018.
had a back-to-back champion since the Warriors in
Warriors.
2017,
Yeah.
2018.
2018.
And since 2019, every champion has been new. So 19 Raptors, 20 Lakers, then you got the Bucks, the Warriors, then you had the Nuggets. Last year was the Celtics. This year it's going to be the Thunder or the Pacers. Personally, my pick. I picked the Celtics to win the championship over the Thunder. Now I'm going to
So did
amend
I.
that. I'm going with
Yeah,
the Thunder in 7. Just a note for you guys, go check Tucker's Twitter. He said, and I quote, that the East was a speed run to a Celtics Cavaliers Eastern Conference Finals.
a speed
Yeah,
run?
not my best take, was it?
Yeah.
No, it really
Not very well.
it's interesting how the East turned out because I feel like that's honestly what most of NBA fans felt at that time as Cleveland was just running through the NBA. Boston seemed like they kind of had another step that they could take in the playoffs. And some people would kind of blame that on the Tatum injury, but honestly, you can't because
Yeah.
it's an
They were dead in
unfortunate
the water
injury.
before that.
New York was going to win anyways. They were
Yeah.
up. They were about to go up 3-1. They were up at least 20 in that game late in the game. So really unfortunate injury. Tatum's going to miss the next year, but that's not why the Celtics didn't get there. The Knicks just had their number. And Indiana, it's been, last year we were kind of like, it's a fluke year. They got some lucky injuries, all this stuff. It's hard to say it's a fluke now because they're back to the finals. This is like the best fourth quarter team we've ever seen. Like
Tyrese
they
Halliburton is a
always manage to
baller.
pull it out.
Tyrese
No,
Halliburton
and
is a
he's
baller.
incredible.
Wow.
What was the stat? He's 4 for 5 on playoff game winners in this 80%. It's not bad.
Like that is an insane statistic. In the 2025 finals alone, he has hit 4 game winning or game tying shots in the final 1.3 seconds of a game, which was game 5 against the Bucks in the first round, game 2 against the Cavs in the semis, game 1 against the Knicks in the finals, in the Eastern Conference Finals, and then game 1 against the Thunder in the NBA Finals, which is just insane. If that happened like twice in the same postseason, that would be miraculous. The fact that it's happened 4 times, and the fact that the Pacers have like rallied from being down as much as they have, because they've been trailing by like huge amounts in some of these games. I think it was like 17 with like 3.5 minutes to go or something like
Something
that
like that.
against the Knicks. Just like no team should be able to come down 17 with like less than 5 minutes left on the clock. You have like 200 seconds, and somehow they managed to do it. I still have no clue. It makes no
Yeah,
sense.
and I don't have the exact stat, but it was something along the lines of in NBA playoff history with it's something like an 8 point deficit with under a minute left. Teams are three and some massive number, something like 3 and 180. And all three of those wins were the Indiana Pacers in the
Yeah.
2025 playoffs.
I think that one of them might have been from I think one of them might have been from the 95 Pacers or something.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Reggie
Because
Miller against the
yeah, because
Knicks.
I
yeah,
do
his
remember about the 6 points, the 6 point swing
in
in like the
in
span
a
of like
couple
5 seconds.
seconds. Yeah,
It's insane. It
That's
feels
why he
like
did the little choke thing with
the
his.
ironic fact is that it's 30 years to like that run. So you win with a guy like that.
It's actually been 25 too, to them getting to the finals.
25 to their finals appearance as well.
right.
On the other end, you have like the Thunder. It seems like they've sort of been like the young up and coming team for a while. That's like kind of, really sprouted its wings. I think in the playoffs, they've really matured at like specific points. Like I think to like game 6 and 7 against the Nuggets, back against the wall, they end up stepping up and delivering. They blow out the Nuggets in game 7 to make it to the finals. And then you're like, okay, in game 1, you lose off a tough loss to the Pacers, but then in game 2, you bounce back. You lose game 3, but then in game 4, you get the job done. And now they're 2 games away from winning the NBA championship. And it's like, I think their average age is like somewhere around like 24. Like
There's
this
some
core has time. They have less time than like most teams in the past though, which like a lot of that has to do with the salary cap specifically. Like they're gonna need to pay up on some of these guys soon, which that's another topic for another day because like the luxury tax and like the apron stuff, it's very confusing for a lot of fans to get their heads wrapped around. Just think about it this way: the Thunder have 2 years with this remaining core left, and then they're going to need to pay somebody. They will need to shell out big dollars to keep people, and they're probably going to have to go over the luxury tax. And then at some point, you need to entertain the conversation about trading somebody. And that happens with every team. It's going to happen with the Celtics, where they need to have a conversation about trading Drew Holiday. It just, whenever you have sustained success, you end up having to pay big dollars to keep those players in the program because they're naturally just going to get more money. And the problem is in the NBA, you don't have unlimited money. That money
OKC,
fills
yeah.
up a lot faster than you think that it would.
The role player salaries that we're seeing now, it feels like almost incomprehensible when OG Anunoby, like amazing when he got 35 million a year, people were losing their minds. And I mean, it's hard to say, I guess, that it didn't work because New York, they made that run. He was a big part. He averaged 18. But somebody like a Lou Dort, while he's not on OG Anunoby's status offensively, having a 3 and D guy like that, that's going to command 25, 30 million a year when his contract comes up. And just these role players, along with obviously Shea, Jalen Williams, and Chet, those are three max guys. And
And
so,
I
like
said
you said,
Hartenstein. That conversation might need to come
Hartenstein,
up
yeah,
if you need to deal him, which is crazy because he just got to OKC.
I know. And people thought his contract was bad, and he's been
He's
one of
getting
the
paid
best
$30
role
million
players in
dollars a year, and he's
basketball.
like lived up to that contract. I think that just speaks to like how expensive teams are to maintain, but B, like the NBA generates like a lot of money. So like I get it to like a certain extent. And the players are always going to want more money because they're generating more money.
I feel like with OKC though, the thing that people kind of go unnoticed is their draft picks. They have a lot of first round
Oh,
draft picks, and so
Paul
they can
George.
make trades. Yeah,
That's it,
exactly.
Paul George.
Shout out to Paul George because he's made sure that both these teams got into the finals based on his trade request.
He
Paul
built two
Um,
George
championship
basically
teams.
has
Yeah.
his
helped build 2 championship
trade
teams. Yeah.
his trade to OKC, the amount that they had to give up to get him from the Pacers, and then from OKC to the Clippers. And then they got Shea in return for him in multiple first round draft picks from the Clippers to the Thunder.
Yeah. I mean, the Pacers was like going from the Pacers to the Thunder was like a little bit more roundabout.
because I think it was for Oladipo and Sabonis. Speaking
Yep.
of which,
Yes.
Victor Oladipo was a baller back in the day. All right.
He
Oh, he
was,
was.
man.
Oladipo in a Pacers uniform, my goodness.
I mean, I
2018
Those are the days.
Oladipo.
never
Oh
forget
my
he took
God.
LeBron 7 games, man.
Those are the days.
2018. Uh,
But then you're
I
like, oh, then you got Sabonis. Sabonis ends up getting traded to Sacramento for Hallie. And then the other way, obviously with the massive trade, you can, I it gets harder to defend with time because it's like, oh, it was SGA and like 7 first round picks for Paul George. But it's really SGA and 7 first round picks for Paul George and Kawhi Leonard. If that helps you justify your meaning a little bit more, that's
yeah.
the only way that they were going to get him in. They had to
I
get Paul
That's a
mean,
good
George in the
point.
building to get him in, which makes it slightly more justifiable. That doesn't mean that I agree with the move. In hindsight's always 2020. Did anybody here imagine that SGA was going to be like a superstar like 5 years from now when we were like looking at it like back in like
no. I
2020?
mean, but then we also have to give credit. If we're gonna bring that up, we have to give credit to Chris Paul going to the Thunder and helping develop Shea
Oh
because
yeah, for
he talks
sure.
about that too. The year that they made the playoffs was the year after. I think, dang, who was on the team that year? I can't remember, but Chris Paul had left the Rockets and then came to OKC.
That was in the Russell Westbrook trade.
Yeah, that was okay. That was
It
Russell.
was.
So that was the year after he left, and they weren't projected to make the playoffs that year. And he took them all the way to the playoffs, and that was when they made it in the bubble.
They
And
actually
he
lost to
nearly,
the Rockets. Funny enough.
yeah, they took them 7 games too. That was when they had Dennis Schroeder, Gallinari, and all those guys on that team. So him going from that and then learning from Chris Paul and all those guys to now being what he is today, I just think that, in hindsight, first of all, we got to give credit who I don't think gets enough credit is Sam Presti, the Thunder GM.
Oh
I
yeah,
mean, you got
He's
Harden,
brilliant.
Westbrook, KD, Paul George.
he has an insane hit rate because you mentioned
His
all
Carmelo.
those
eye for
players
talent is incredible.
Yeah,
Yeah.
of course.
because he
And
can.
then getting all these draft picks and being competitive over the years and then making that trade for Shea. I don't know how else you put it, but like I get people want him to finally break through and win the championship, and I think he will this year. I have the Thunder winning in 6 games. But I do believe that, it all starts from your front office and organization, how you lead things. I think a lot of people thought when the era left and the Westbrook era ended, it was over. And they've managed to still be competitive year after year. I think they only missed the playoffs since those two have left one time. And that was in 2023 and they lost in the play-in tournament to the Pelicans. So I think that, much respect and credit needs to go to them for sure.
Yeah,
Good.
no, their rebuild has been so fast. How Presti was able to flip for all those picks,
I don't know.
and they still have
You
all
just hear
those
some good
picks
chicken stuff.
coming for the future. So we're looking over the next 5, almost 10 years, where the Thunder, who already have this not super team because it was self-made, but this potential dynasty, and that many people were comparing to the 2015 Warriors and how it was self-grown, bunch of young players who just came together and found the winning formula. Like we said, the contracts are going to be an issue, but they also have the picks that they can go out, they can make trades, they can get more young guys to filter through the system.
So I wanted to ask you guys, because there's been a conversation coming up a lot lately. Who are you taking, the 2025 Thunder or 2012 7 game series?
25 Thunder, man. I think that the 2012 Thunder had a lot more like firepower, especially in like their big three. But if you think about it, at the time, Harden was like the sixth man. He wasn't fully developed into like the Harden that he became, like especially around like 2016. That would have taken like a couple years to develop. So it's really you talk about having Westbrook and KD. No, I feel like SGA, like you might get in an argument about would you I think the argument boils down to would you rather take 2025 SGA or do you take 2012 KD? And I feel like that's a very interesting question about whether you want to do that because I feel like as a team behind them, I like the 2025 Thunder more, like top to bottom.
I mean, yes and no, because But then you got to add context to who they were beating to get to that point too.
Right.
They beat the prime Lakers with Kobe and Powell and all those guys there. The Mavericks, the Spurs, and their dynasty prime years. They went on to win championships after that. Then they took out Dallas, who had just won the finals the year before against Miami. And then they ran up against the Big Three Heat. And they were also very young too. They were like 22, 23 years old. So I feel like when you add all that together, I might have to go 2012 because then you got Kendrick Perkins down there. He was a defensive anchor for Boston when they won their title in '08. He came there. Serge Ibaka, Russell Westbrook, Thabo Sefolosha was a premier perimeter defender. And then you got James Harden and KD. So I don't know, man. But
Well,
Terry Tucker, who you got, man?
I'm going to take 25, and
Okay,
it's
bro.
not because of talent. Talent wise, I want 2012 with just the two-man firepower. If like Durant, Westbrook match them up with Shea and Jalen Williams, as good as SGA and Jalen Williams are, I want Westbrook and Durant.
it's the
But
depth.
it's hard to look at just and how the depth, you're right, and also how the team is meshed because we're looking at this Thunder team had I think the best net rating or the best plus minus in NBA history in the regular season.
They
If
did.
not, it was like the top three. So yeah, the number one. If I see something like that, it's really hard for me to go against that and say that the 2012 team, although I will give you, they played stiffer competition in the finals. No disrespect to Indiana, but the Heatles were no joke. But I just have to take the 2025 team, not talent wise, but just from what we've seen, they've been one of the best regular season teams ever and have a chance to make it one of the best seasons ever if they can finish off this championship.
One
I
thing
mean,
to
they
note,
did.
one thing
Yeah.
to know is a statistic called BPI, which is the Basketball Power Index. I'm looking at it right now. So you have like the numbers from like zero is just your average team. So like the Grizzlies were at point 0.5, Pistons were like negative point 0.2, negative 0.2. The Thunder had a basketball power index of 8.5. The next closest was the Pacers at 6.2. Now the Pacers had a offensive rating of 4.2 in this power index. The Thunder had 3.2, but then on the defense, and I think this is the perfect example of just how good the Thunder's defense is. It was 5.2, and the Pacers is 2.0. The Thunder are far above any other team so far this season in terms of defense. And it's just watching them, it feels like I tried to use an analogy in episode 2 of Burg Bros when I was talking about a wine cellar. In episode 3, I think it's time to give another try. Playing the Thunder is like getting stung by a bunch of wasps, and all of the wasps are Thunder's players because they come from literally every direction. And there's so many of them that are versatile, can play defense. You saw Alex Caruso guarding Nikola Jokic, and he did a great job guarding Jokic. And Caruso is like a 6'4" guard.
And in the other sense, you see Chet switching out on Halliburton, and he
Right.
holds his own out there. He can play on all levels.
And I think that the best thing is like this is honestly like I think that this is the worst that Chet is going to be in his career. It's only going up from here. Like yes, he is raw offensively. I think that that's probably his biggest weakness of his game right now. But like right now, he works amazing as like a help defender. Can you put him yet on like a big body? Somebody like Jokic. Would he be great as a primary defender on Jokic? No, I don't think so. I think a lot of that has to do with his weight. But as like a help defender, coming off of like the weak side to like help block, he is great for that position. Like I kind of wish that they went with more of like the double big and like ran more Chet and Ihart together because then you can have Ihart as like that big body and then you have Chet coming over to like help double team like when you have like a good player getting into the paint.
Yeah, and
Agree.
like you were saying, where he's nowhere near his peak. We also have to keep in mind he missed the first 3 quarters of the season, which also puts into perspective how good this Thunder team is. They were that dominant in the regular season, and their third best player and their shot blocker was out. But he's basically worked his way into playoff form in the playoffs. And so the Chet that we're seeing right now, while still really strong, nowhere near even what we're probably going to see next year after a full off season to work out and find his game.
Right. Like Chet has only played 110 games in his career. He started all 82 of his games in his first year. And then he only played 32 this year, but he still looks just as good, if not better than last year. I mean, yeah, you look at like the stats, just like, like field goal percentage went down, free throw percentage went down, assists per game went down, but it feels like just the impact that he's having contributes a little bit more off the stats. And I mean, like blocks per game, like going down from 2.3 to 2.2, it's negligible. He has 2.5 blocks in the playoffs from last year, and that'll probably be even more this year, I think, once it's all said and done.
I agree. I think that the key to this series, man, will be that bench play and just overall just as a team. Like I feel like Shea is doing what he's doing, Halliburton's doing what he's doing, but the benches are what's carrying this. And I think a lot of people have to talk about that more. I just feel like SGA, man, also that's another thing. Like if you look at what he's doing and then you mix it in with Dort and Caruso and
The
all those
torture
other guys,
chamber.
it's just yeah, like I'm just like, yo, in the final, yep, 438, he scores 15 of his 35. 15. And that was the most points that was scored in a final, like 5 minutes in a final since 1971. 1971. So I just feel like, man, like it's gonna come down to that. Like I really think that, and then like them just bullying Indiana inside was also the answer to last game. They outscored them 50 to 36 in the paint. So and then out rebounded them as well. So I think that they've got to find answers. I think that Danago, he did a great job with like just engineering switches for Shea as well. If you notice throughout the game, he was getting the mismatches and just matchups that he liked that worked to his advantage. I really enjoyed watching that from him, and I just think, like I said, I think that Halliburton and Shea are gonna be the stars of this. Obviously, we've seen that the last four games, but I think that off the bench play is what gets these teams rolling. So whoever the better bench is, I think that's who's gonna take this over.
Well,
But
I picked the Thunder in seven. Kahlil picked the Thunder in six. Tucker, are you going to make it a three-peat and pick the Thunder?
I have to. I'm going to go Thunder in seven.
really, y'all both got them in seven though?
Well, for one, part of that might be my heart. I really feel like this finals deserves to go to seven with how good it's
Halliburton
been.
has one more game bomb in him. He has one more. I feel it. It's coming in game five. I'm calling it now.
Oh, it's coming tomorrow night.
This is
Really?
taped on the 15th. If that comes on the 16th, you can thank me for making this age well. I'm calling it right now. Tyrese Halliburton, game winner to go up 3-2, and then the Thunder claim two straight to win the championship.
I mean, I feel like, man, I think the Thunder gonna win tomorrow in the next game. I just feel like they have the better team and they've rallied under pressure multiple times this series. And I just feel like based on what I've seen from Shea, I think we've seen this in the similar the last few series. I just think when he's locked in, there's nothing you can do because I think the whole team responds at that point. And I just think that it really could be ending. It should have been ending tomorrow, in my opinion. But they lost, focus at the end of game one. Halliburton does what he does and we're here today. But I just feel like and like I said, the battle of the benches, game three and game four, it it changed everything for both teams. So I think that with OKC though, I think that the difference maker for them, yes, is their bench, it's their defense. And if you remember when this series first started, especially in game two, what they were doing, they were forcing Indiana to turn the ball over so much and they were able to get going on offense. And I think at home, the Ruckus crowd going, same thing like we saw in game four. I think game five will be a repeat of that.
All right, well, that's all we've got in the basketball end. Thank you so much, Tucker, for coming on.
Thank you, Tucker.
Yeah, no, thank you guys. Good to see you guys again.
Well, now it's just me and Kahlil, and we're dealing with the final topic that we have, which is our predictions for the 2025 NFL season. This is based on the schedules for each team, which have now been fully released. So, as you can see, I've got my predictions here. We're going to go quickly scroll through that you can, so that way you can see what we predicted for each of these teams. I think that mine is correct in terms of like the wins and losses each week. I don't know if Khalil's is perfectly accurate corresponding to each week, but it gives you at minimum a good sense of how we think each team is going to do. So I predicted that the Cardinals would have 8 wins, so they'll finish 8-9. Falcons I had going 7-10, Ravens 14-3, Bills 13-4. Panthers 6-11. Shout out Thomas Bray. Hashtag keep pounding. The Bears, I had them finishing 8-9. Bengals 10-7. Browns 3-14. Cowboys 7-10. Broncos 11-6. Lions 14-3. Packers and Texans 10-7. The Colts 6-11. Jaguars 5-12. Chiefs 14-3. Raiders 4-13. Rams 12-5, Chargers 9-8, Dolphins 7-10, Vikings 9-8, Patriots 5-12, Saints 2-15, Giants 5-12, Jets 5-12, Eagles 15-2, Steelers 9-8. Shout out Bailey Angle. 49ers 10-7, the Seahawks 7-10, the Buccaneers 12-5, the Titans 4-13. And the Commanders 11-6. Moving on to Khalil's side, I'll let him take over that end.
All right. You want me to read it off? Oh yeah, wait on you.
Yeah.
All right. So I had the Cardinals going 9-8, ATL going 8-9, Baltimore. I got them going 15-2, but we'll see about how that plays out. Barring this is like without injuries though. Then I got Buffalo 12-5. Carolina, I got them 4-13.
Okay.
I don't know if I believe in Bryce Young just yet. Chicago, same thing with Caleb Williams. I think he takes a step forward, but a lot of these teams are playoff teams, and I just don't think that he'll do like get them wins. And then Cincinnati, I had them going
big
13.
Cincinnati believer here.
Yeah, I am. I think the season that Joe Burrow had last year, it's not happening again. In terms of like them struggling and losing these games close week to week, I don't see him missing the playoffs 3 straight years. And I think just based on seeing what Josh Allen did with basically nobody, I think he could possibly do the same. On like in terms of his defense. But Cleveland, I had them going 4-13. They need to figure out their quarterback situation.
I mean, what do you think that quarterback situation looks like at the end of the year when all things are said and done?
Well, I think what just everyone else thinks. I think Shador Sanders will have the fanfare and he will be starting. Obviously, not week 1 because right now they have him taking like second and third team reps, and then the other guys ahead of him, Kenny Pickett, Joe Flacco, and Dylan Gabriel are all taking first team reps as well. So I think that they'll probably have him on the bench to start the season, but either way, no matter who starts, I don't really think that the Browns will be doing anything spectacular against a lot of teams, and I just think they need to figure out their future. And I think that they'll struggle through most of the season. And they have one of the hardest schedules, if not the hardest in the league. Dallas, I had them finishing 10-7.
Okay, that's a direct flip of mine. I had them at 7-10.
Whoa. I mean, okay. I think the addition of
I think that Pickens is going to help, but like, you know,
him and Lamb though, I think that
it's going to be volatile is the best word that I would describe, and I don't know what the situation with Dak coming back is going to be. I tend to lean on the side of I don't know if it's going to be that great. I would just go 7-10. I mean, this might be a pick that I eat on, and it ages really badly. But this is the take that I'm most comfortable doing that with and saying, okay, that's a bad take. If it ends up being a bad take, like this is one that I'd feel good about.
All
Mm.
good, man.
And I mean, the majority of your wins are clustered in the early half of the season. Like you have them winning six straight after an opening week loss to Philly, and then they end up losing five of six in the last part of the season.
Yes,
So
because I think a lot of these teams you look at after Philly, they're young quarterback teams, and I think that they're at home for some, as you can see right here. I think that they'll win. They'll defend home like well. They have one of the best home records in league history. So I think that they always perform well at home. It's the road games and then the games against some of the like upper echelon teams. I
right.
just don't believe in them having well played games in, and that's why I have them going 10-7. So they're 3 games above 500. It'll be good enough, I don't think, to win the division but potentially make that seventh wild card spot around there. Because they did add the extra spot this season for this past season for the wild card game. It used to just be six. Now there's 7 teams
Yeah.
involved. Yeah.
I noticed talking about one of the teams that was a wild card last season, you have Denver with a losing record this year. And Green Bay, surprisingly enough, with a 7-10 record.
Yeah.
What's the justification there?
Well, if you want to go Denver, they got to come to the Chargers. I think that the Chargers, they're going to continue to build on what they did last season. I think that,
13-4.
yeah.
This guy's a homer.
Yes, sir. We'll get to that in a second. But I think that game, the Cincinnati game, like I said, I think that Cincinnati is just the better team. And then Philly out there, the champions, and they've gotten even better. Like I feel like this year, people have them meeting in the Super Bowl again with Kansas City, for a rematch, and they've been in the Super Bowl 2 of the last 3 years against the Chiefs.
Right.
So I think that their defense, they're just all around, they're complete. So I think they're definitely losing that game. Kansas City, they're gonna lose. I feel like they're gonna lose both times at home and away. Kansas City always does well, they do decent with Denver. Um, I think that when you go to Washington, the Commanders, man, yo, Jaden Daniels, I think he builds on what he did last season, if I'm being
Yeah.
honest.
But defenses are going to be more used to him. So you expect to see like a small step back in his
I'll step
production,
back.
but also an evolution in who he is as a player. Because, teams are going to be more used to him and like what he does. But then on the
Yes.
flip side, he's going to learn more about the NFL side of things rather than just relying on the college end. So you get a sort of mix of positive and a negative. I think that it coalesces in the middle. We both have them at 11-6. Kahlil is very high in the Texans, which I am not. He is very
Yeah.
no. I have them at 10-7, which is the same record that they've had for the past 3 seasons. We both, however, are in agreement on the Vikings, who we both picked to finish 9-8. I don't
Yeah.
know. I think that team overachieved last year with Sam Darnold, and now you've got an unproven guy in JJ McCarthy. Like I liked what I saw from him in like his lone preseason game. And it's like, okay, he has flashes. I think that we're going to partially see some of those, but I just don't know if that's going to be enough. I have them missing out on the playoffs and not getting the final wildcard slot because I think that every team in the NFC that makes the playoffs is going to have at least 7 wins. So on the screen is our records for each team being shown by the NFC and then the AFC. So my 7 teams that I have picked to make the playoffs in the AFC are as the first seed, I have the Chiefs who are 14-3. Second seed Ravens who are 14-3. Third seeded Bills at 13-4. Texans at 10-7. 5 seed Broncos at 11-6. 6 seeded Bengals at 10-7. And the Chargers hold the final slot at 9-8, bumping out the Steelers. Then you have the Dolphins missing out and the Colts missing out.
Yeah, I agree with that list. That's part of the reason why I think Houston
Except,
is
do you think that
being.
the Chargers are going to be 13-4? There's
Oh
that.
yeah, yeah. I was talking about who makes the playoffs. Now I
Yeah.
do think that the Chargers will be up there with the Chiefs this year, man. I think this year is the year. I think Harbaugh coming into the division, he didn't know what he was really getting himself ready for. He said it last year. His goal is to beat the Chiefs and Mahomes and Andy Reid. and to dethrone them as the division champs. I mean, since I want to say 2017, the Chiefs have been winning the division, bro. Like
Yeah, it's been
the
insane.
last 8 straight years, they've won the division. I think probably even before that too, probably 16 maybe. So
I think so.
um, they've they've been the kings, and somebody got to put a stop to this. This is looking like Brady in the AFC East
Yeah.
with the Bills
Yeah.
and the Jets and the Dolphins. Like it's not that we have some people would say we have the best overall division in football if you're talking about competitiveness, but I just feel like or
I'd argue that that's the NFC North looking
AFC,
at
yeah,
things.
AFC North, I would say. Bengals, Steelers.
AFC North and the NFC North too. Both of those are very strong divisions. You could make an argument for the NFC East this year if it turns out like the Cowboys are back to
I think they
playoff
will
contention,
be.
and then the Giants kind of improving, but you got Russell Wilson, decent quality option at this point in his career, and then you got Jackson Dart, unproven guy, but could really prove to be like a key.
He
I
could
think that
be.
he's going to be a good quarterback in the NFL. I don't know about great, but I think that I would at least like to see some flashes from the season. I personally had them going 5-12, but I would be happy to be wrong on that because I think that Jackson Dart has what it takes to be a really good quarterback. I think that year one will give us a good indicator of where he's going to go.
I agree with that. I think yeah, to your point, I think this is the year a lot of teams really um Giants one of them that's a rebuild year. I think that um that that loss, I wouldn't even say just a loss, but that giveaway of Saquon Barkley has to go down as one of the dumbest things you could ever, dumbest moves
Could
you
have at
could
least
ever.
traded him. At least trade him and get something.
Like you let him go to the division rivals and he wins the Super
Yeah,
Bowl.
like the Hard Knocks thing. I'm gonna lose sleep if Saquon goes to Philadelphia. Oh my god, that's aging so badly.
And listen, he it was a conversation about him coming to the Chargers last year. And I just think that this team, it was cool that you got, Russell Wilson in there at quarterback to help the team and get Malik Neighbors, somebody to throw him the ball and a Hall of Famer at this point in his career to do that, and then Jackson Dart can learn from him. I just think, yeah, like I think this will be a rebuild year. Like I said, with the Chargers, I think that also like it it's more of a rebuild, yes, but like you're gonna keep making these steps forward, and I believe in
Right.
Justin Herbert. I really do. I
Rather
believe.
than rebuilding, you think of it more as renovation, polishing up on things that like you need to develop,
Well,
especially when
yeah,
it
I
comes to
mean,
like the receiving core.
you went 10-7 last year. I mean, you really didn't have any receiver threat outside of Lad McConkey, who was breaking records his first year out of
I
Georgia.
think that Amiri Hansen is going to be very good at this first
That's what
year.
I'm saying. But last year though, you
Yeah.
didn't have no one else to go to. And then Quentin Johnson, he was supposed to be this top flight guy, and he can't catch a pass.
Ugh.
So when you have this happening, and then you bring in Mike Williams, you bring in more help in the draft, and you add that on, I think that the receiving core will be a lot better. You shed in some salary, getting rid of injury prone, and I'm not saying this to be disrespectful, because he was my favorite player when he first got to the team, and my idol when I played football, Joey Bosa out of Ohio State. He just can't stay healthy. And you see him going to Buffalo, and he's still having problems. They're saying he might not be ready for training camp.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you cut that salary. You bring Khalil Mack back. You still got Derwin James out there, and Asante Samuel Jr. and stuff like that. So you still have a solid defense to build around, I feel like, and then the offense is doing well. I think, like I said, I love the pickup of Harbaugh and just the rebuilding and the retooling that he's done since he's gotten back. We've seen guys take pay cuts to stay there last year, and then some guys didn't, as in Keenan Allen, and he was out of there, and now he's a free agent because Chicago didn't want him. And Eckler's also gone too. He's in Washington. And I think
Yeah.
the guys, shout out to y'all. Both teams that we're speaking on, Washington and LA, performed really well last year, despite the circumstances at hand. So I expect my Chargers to compete with the Chiefs this year. Um, it's gonna be tough. It is definitely gonna be tough, but with an aging Travis Kelsey as well out there, and then your young upcoming team, I think you this is the time. And the Chiefs were struggling last year. I mean, shoot, you nearly won the last game against them, and so I feel like in Kansas City too, you lost by a field goal.
Yeah.
So you're getting closer every year. You got Herbert finally got a good coach, a good run game, a good overall team, in my opinion. And I just think that this is the year that they take the next step, man. And I'm rooting for my boys, man. I really want to see them do really well. I'm being honest with you here. But as we know, this is just our predictions. Nothing's guaranteed.
Right. On the
But
NFC end, oh, real quick before we get to the NFC, on the AFC, I didn't realize until I just did the numbers to see who would be the 7 teams. I have the Ravens going up against the Chargers in round one in the wild card, which is great because it's Connor versus Kahlil's team. Connor's in here because he had some personal stuff to attend to, so he wasn't able to be here for episode 3. Should have him back for episode 4. And instead, of course, we had Evan and Tucker come on as guests. And then we also have Bills versus Bengals in this hypothetical Thomas Hughes 2025 NFL AFC playoff prediction. On the NFC end, and this is where things get interesting, I had the Eagles at 1, 15-2, Lions at 14-3 at the 2 seed, Rams at 3, Bucks at 4, both of those teams 12-5. At the 5 seed, I have the Commanders at 11-6, 6 seed, the Niners at 10-7, and then the final seed is the Packers at 10-7. So, in terms of who makes it in, it's pretty simple. Niners are in, and the Vikings are out. So it was pretty simple. One swap in each conference. Bengals make it in over the Steelers this time. And on the other end, the Niners making it in over the Vikings. I feel like I can get behind that. It's somewhat conservative, but I feel like I made some bold picks. Like I picked the Ravens to go like 14-3. I think that I'm kind of high on where they are right now. And I think that I don't know about the playoffs yet, but I'm definitely ready to say that this team will be very good in the regular season. Just generally, like if you had to put feelers out, like 8 months before it all goes down, like what would you see like a potential Super Bowl looking at right now?
I mean, obviously the pick would have to be the Chiefs and Eagles. I mean, they're the
Yeah.
two best right now as we stand. Obviously, coming out of last year, I think that um the Eagles continue to make moves. They're just the most complete team in all of football, in my
Yeah.
opinion. Like,
And with their draft stuff, like Harry Roseman, he's the
yep,
Sam Presti. He's the Sam Presti of the NFL.
most definitely, man.
That man drafts well too. And he makes great trades.
Yes,
You
he
see
does.
the AJ Brown trade from the Titans for reference on that. Like
Yeah.
he knows how to win. I don't know yet about whether I'm ready to say that they go back to back. I think because I'm a Commanders fan, so obviously I would very much. If the fan in me wants them to lose, the non-fan in me thinks that they do have what it takes to go back to back. But obviously, it comes down to one game, and it also takes so much to get to that one game.
Yo,
I think that they've shown
don't
that they
sleep
have
on
it.
Detroit.
I would put Detroit up there in that conversation once again. I know that I wouldn't say that they choked, but it seemed like Jared Goff played a little bit down compared to his regular season, especially against the Commanders. I would still put him in that conversation. I
Well,
mean, I don't know if I would put the Bucks or the Rams in there. The Bucks mainly because I don't see a world in which this isn't like a slight to Baker because Baker is a top 10 QB in the league in my opinion. That might be a topic for next episode, our rankings of QBs in the league, at least in my opinion. I think that would be good exercise. Allows me to.
Jalen Hurts, I mean, he's been top two in the MVP discussion. He was about to win MVP in 2022, then he sprained his shoulder the end of the season, and Mahomes got it. And then he's Super Bowl MVP. He's outplayed
That's
Patrick
kind of my
Mahomes.
homie.
He's outplayed Patrick Mahomes twice in the Super Bowl. And he wins a lot. ever since he pretty much came in the league, he just wins as a starter. Like the guys believe in him. He gets the job done. He's been to two Super Bowls. He's won a Super Bowl. Some people said if they would have won the Super Bowl a couple of years back, he would have been Super Bowl MVP then too. So I think based off that, now if we're going overall talent, obviously he doesn't have the talent of the Justin Herberts of the world, the Josh Allens, the Mahomes, the Burrows, the Lamar Jacksons. But if we're talking overall everything, you have to put him top five. However, um, to the point about the Super Bowl, I now that I'm thinking about it more after you just brought those points up and those teams. I don't know. It's not a definitive that they will go back to back and meet up with each other, but we have to account that those Chiefs, the ceiling for them is AFC Championship. Ever since Patrick Mahomes has been a starter, he has not missed the AFC Championship game.
You
And
mean
he's
the
only,
floor? You mean the floor for them is AFC
yeah, the
Championship?
floor. The
Yeah,
ceiling is obviously the Super Bowl, I'm sorry.
yeah.
But
Hmm.
Mahomes, as the starter of this team, he's only lost to two people in the playoffs, in well, three, but in
Tom
the
Brady, Joe Burrow, and Jalen Hurts.
there you go. So that being said, I think it is unless somebody can come dethrone him, we've seen Josh Allen try it, we've seen Lamar Jackson try it, and hopefully we can see Justin Herbert try it. But hey, he
Or
that
Jane
being,
Daniels. Jane Daniels can beat him in the Super Bowl and
what do you
establish
think?
the Commanders' reign of terror.
Maybe. I mean,
Commanders will win 5 Super Bowls this generation. Hey, the college football 26 trailer showed like some like generic like my player type guy like retiring after he won like 6 rings. So that makes me hopeful that college football believes in us and I believe in us too. So I think the future's bright. I think that the Washington Commanders are going to win like 6 rings, and like Jane Daniels would be recognized as the goat.
so you think
Part of
that that
that, part of that is hyperbole. Part of that is hyperbole, and I'm kind of being funny. But this is something that like I'd love to see it happen. I do think that this year is going to be a step back year in terms of the record, but the most important thing is, of course, developing Jane Daniels and building the team around him. You have time. Eventually, you're going to run out of time when he gets off his rookie deal, but you have to maximize this time right now, both with developing him and building the team around him, which I think that they did a solid job of this offseason. This is my personal complaint. I kind of wish that they had taken Donovan Azuraku at edge in the first round. And this is something that we noted in episode 2. I would have liked that move a lot. And I feel like that could have built this team. But I like the selection of Trey Amos. That was a good pick.
yeah, I think that getting Debo Samuels too, that was also a big pickup for you guys. He looks a little out of shape though,
Yeah.
but I think he'll get back soon. It's just mini camp just starting. So Um, but I think y'all guys have a lot of promise, man. I think that obviously it probably might be a CJ Stroud situation where, he might have a little slower like start, like you said, season compared to this past season.
Yeah.
Like getting back to an NFC championship game in your second year is gonna be hard.
Yeah.
And
Especially when you have to
I,
deal with the Lions still and other teams like
I
in
think
that vein.
who was the team? I forgot who exactly was the team, but it was like or the players involved, but it was like Mark Sanchez, Ben Roethlisberger, and someone else, and Patrick Mahomes, who have all made the AFC Championship in their first year or so starting, and they've been back again after that.
Yeah.
So he's got some like company to chase in terms of like doing stuff like that, man. Like he can do it. I'm not gonna say he can't,
Yeah.
but these teams are definitely better this year, and I would love. I'm definitely paying attention to the NFC to
Yeah,
see.
I would pick Washington to probably be a divisional round exit this season. I
Mhm.
don't think that they make it back to the NFC title game. I do think that that is going to be the Eagles and the Lions this year, and that's not me saying this as like a Commanders hater. I'm far from it. I'm the opposite. I'm trying to paint like a realistic picture of like people are going to be more used to Jane Daniels, and it will still be taking him time to develop. So you see a slight step back in his statistics, but I think that is going to be better Well, not necessarily better, but in the long run, I don't think that the stats from this year are going to matter because year two, you learn more. People learn more about Jane Daniels, but Jane Daniels also learns more about every other team and about every other player. He has more time. They have more time to learn him. He has more time to learn them. I think it comes as slight negative now, but then develops into more of a positive as we get into year three, year four, and so on and so forth. But hope you guys enjoyed our little NFL 2025 predictions. Hope you guys enjoyed us having Evan and Tucker on the show. I'm Thomas Hughes, and this is Kahlil McCullough, and we will see you in episode 4 of the Burg Bros podcast. Take care, everybody.